Hey, so ran out of tape before, so it turns out there's gonna be 6 parts. I guess, yeah, two even sides, yin and yang, heads of a coin, heads and tails, whatever you will. I don't believe in accidents. I guess 666, number of the beast. Well, I mean, it is a dark ambient Halloween style project. Although I'm not big on the whole satanic imagery, I usually use classic Grim Reaper and symbolic imagery of death or the dead, and that's my thing because it's right out of ancient Celtic culture to worship the night and worship the dead and see it as sacred. Well, in many scriptures, especially ancient India, they talk about the night as magical. It's made for creativity, it's made for beauty, it's made for love, it's made for artists and art. And it's true, I get going my best at night more than any other artist, but all artists really get going sometimes late at night. It's when the world gets so quiet enough, you can be so at peace, it can really flow and you can really hear your own thoughts, your own concentration, undisturbed and everything. So it's been a good day, a good productive day. It's been a while. I mean, I've been back to work and stuff like that, but it's been a while since I sat down and did something that really marked anything I've been doing, or marked a period, or picked up from a period that went on of great delays and so forth. So, basically, that's all of it, and this is the last of the interviews. And as I was saying before, I'm really happy and really excited about the Circle of the Black Moon, and Danse Macabre. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there's another one. I just never thought of a name. I was just going to call it the Living Dead Mixes. And, it's anything can be thrown in, kind of like the way rave music was in the early beginning. It's like anything and everything mixed in with hooks and stuff that came from old DJs from the rap era in the early 80s, and house music. It's very house music-y. And I'm going to do something like that with it, but it's just going to be called the Living Dead Mixes, or Living Dead Dance Mixes. Either one, probably mixes. And, that's all the projects, and that's everything. And, that's everything up to date. I haven't done an interview since 1995, 1996. And I did one interview around 97, 98, and it was got in some magazines, and it actually a big deal was made about it, but I never saw it or heard it. It's like the many photo shoots I've done and been in, I never got a copy, and it was really annoying. This is before the internet, and even now with the internet, people say they're going to get around to something and they never do, and that's happened to me once or twice. But 98% of the time, no, I always follow through. And if I say I'm going to send you pics and we work together and I'm going to get you copies, I always do that. And, what's really cool is, this marks the end of delays, the end of troubles, stagnant periods, the end of having so much material, not knowing where to start, and getting it all on tape and recorded, and then being able to start working on new material. Because for the longest time, it's like, God, I keep coming up with new stuff and writing it down, and it's and it just sits and I can never get to it. I mean, hey, dying 13 times, comas, lost my little brother, he died, we were like twins, we were very close growing up when we were young. And then again in high school, I'd take him out to Grateful Dead concerts with me, and he'd always want to come out with me. And I'd finally explain to him when he's 14, 15, and I'm 16, going, listen, man, I just didn't want to bring you too young, so you might, in case you overdid something, which you're going to want to do. I just wanted to make sure you just had a maturity level enough, an understanding of the world to be able to handle it. Of course, I was right. I take him out to his first Grateful Dead concert, and I'm like, wait right here, I'm going to get a ticket. Don't trip this time. Next week, we're going to I'm taking you on another show. You can trip your brains out. Just get used to it, get a feel, get comfortable, see if you really like everything, So I turn around, I go to get the tickets, and as soon as I turn back, there he is, putting it in his mouth. He from a really tripped out looking guy, a really old weirded out looking deadhead, and it's like great. It's a real acid dealer who makes acid, and he's got real strong LSD. And he takes window pane, which is like the strongest, and it's got a bubble of liquid inside, like a plastic gel, and it's like, you know, a Starburst, you know, Starburst gum. And he takes the whole thing, and I'm like, oh no. And I was worried for a while, and then after a half hour, 40 minutes into the concert, I'm like, how you doing, bro? And he's like, this is awesome. And I'm like, all right, cool, you're gonna be all right. But, you know, I was responsible. Like, I knew he was gonna want to get stoned and follow in everybody's footsteps, not just mine. So I was very careful about it. And, like, you know, he was okay on his own. When he passed away, you know, this is why I hate drugs. He forgot he'd taken a certain painkiller for his back, which is really busted up, worse than mine. And, you know, it was the next day and it was still in his system, and he started drinking tequila. And, you know, they mixed, and it just made him snap. And he was having a rough time that year, and he felt really down, felt hopeless and helpless. You know, that's a big delay. I mean, there's been a lot of stuff. You know, my little brother is my favorite person. Sometimes he's my favorite subject. You know, I try not to think about all of it and stuff like that. Even missing him and stuff, I try to get focused with work. But sooner or later, somebody asks about it, or if I'm mentioning it, and, you know, you see my face light up, because we had some really good times. He was really a great guy in life, one of my favorite people. You know, it's like my guitarist, Mike. He reminded me in a way of my little brother, Thomas, as if, you know, instead of a photographer, as a lead guitarist, soloist. And that's somebody I'll miss. You know, he died. There's been just so many up and downs after 1997. And it's funny, in 2004 to 2007, 2008 was a real up period, and everything was going great. But then I had the flood in the apartment, and that really interrupted everything. And then, you know, finally, a couple of years later, I get back to designing the studio I'm about to use it, and there's black mold poisoning. I mentioned all this stuff before, but, you know, it's, you know, this really marks the end of a period and the beginning of a new period. And if I drop dead tomorrow because my heart condition or whatever, well, then this marks the end of me and my work, and nothing will ever have gotten actualized except 2 songs. But hey, it's better than nothing. You know, I mean, I've played for 50,000 people. I was a king of Europe for a while. You know, at one point, I noticed how big metal was coming back in Europe, and I realized, because I'd been touring there doing it, because, you know, everything was changing over to the rave thing, you know, in America, and the grunge thing, which I really didn't like the grunge thing. At first, I thought it was cool because an openness and an open-mindedness going on in music, where it's a time of an experimental sense where anything could happen. And I thought it was going to head in this positive direction and be like finishing of the whole hippie movement that never finished itself. And it turned into, like, everybody cut their hair off, starts doing heroin, and it got miserable. But I saw that coming. I didn't like the whole grunge thing at first. I was like, this is too depressing, man. So I went off to Europe, and I was like, and the clubs are closing, and, you know, everybody's starting to rip each other off and get jaded and, like, competitive, and this I hate rock stars stuff. I saw it coming, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Europe, man. It's totally different over there, and the goth thing's over there, and I really wanted to embrace that the most. And you know, so I did. And next thing you know, after 6 years, or, you know, like the first 3 that I played and did what I did during that time period, the 3 years after, it really generated a lot. So it's like 2004, and I'm doing it again, and I'm realizing, you know, wow, I caused a big influence and a big reaction, where it was a big surgence in metal. And the whole, you know, and this new thing with, you know, funeral prom dress wearing, you know, funeral brides, you know, and the whole Halloween thing. And nobody loves that more than me. Secretly, all along, that's what I wanted to do. And I had been doing it. But, like, The Living Dead was a side project while I was in my own band that was really hippied out. And I wanted to be like a dark hippie thing and go in a whole new direction like this. But nobody was digging it, and whatever. We went to the studio, and nobody shows up but me. I quietly hired a band, and I was like, all right, we're going to record death and all this death stuff, and, you know, we're just going to go into my side project, The Living Dead. Actually, originally it was just called Death, and then I found out there was a band called Death, and I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, well, you know, like the Rolling Stones, we could just call it The Living Dead. It's not completely original, but at the same time it is original, because it's not Night of the Living Dead. This is about vampires. Well, anyway, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And thank you for listening, everybody. You guys are the best.